Alright, let's tell you guys about Barbie. So, every man should watch Barbie. The reason why every man should watch Barbie because it was a good movie. I know that the conservatives are going out of pocket. I know that you have the leftists that are going out of pocket. But really, both sides of the aisle are stupid. People in the middle, you guys get it. They keep talking about how it's leftist propaganda, but they're missing the whole point of the entire story. So you start out, right, and you have this perfect world that Barbie's in and it's ran by women. It's the exact same. It's a oversimplified version and a not well thought out view of what a patriarchy would be. So if you listen to somebody that was far on the left and they explained to you what a patriarchy was, they would explain Barbie's world, but with men being in power instead of women. So it was like Barbie always has a great day, but Ken only has a great day if Barbie looks at him, which makes total sense because the hardcore feminists will say that men have it easy in this world. They have great days all the time, and then women have it hard because they have to appease to men in order to get any sort of power. Okay, cool. So we start out there, right? And we immediately see the inequalities between Barbie versus Ken's. Barbie's have jobs and houses and stuff like that. Ken's, they don't have any houses. They don't have any jobs. They have no power. And you even get that same sort of parallel when they go into to Mattel, which is the parent company of Barbie, and they were talking about feminism in there and the patriarchy. And literally, one of the dudes that was like a secretary was like, "Well, I'm a man without power. Does that make me a woman?" And they're acknowledging the fact that there are men without power. You see what I'm saying? And so the fact that they're acknowledging the fact that there's men without power goes directly against like what the feminists say and what the left are saying about the movie. This movie is really seeing both sides and calling out both sides of the aisle, and I think that's another reason why people are having a hard time digesting this film. Another way that it went is that, you know, in the middle of the movie, right, Ken gets out to the real world and he has the simplified view of what a patriarchy is. You see what I'm saying? Which is hilarious because he goes out there and he sees men on the money, he sees men on, like, you know, the magazines. Everything about this is just man. He gets super excited. He's like, men run the world here, right? It's just all about men here, right? So he starts going up to regular people and having these interactions. The funny part is like, he thinks he could do anything because he's a man, right? And so, like, one of the things that he does is he goes up to an actual woman doctor, right? And then he's like, "Hey, I guess I'll be a doctor today. Go ahead and give me a scalpel, give me a patient." And she's like, "No, you can't do that. You don't have a medical degree. You don't work here." He was like, "Well, let me see the doctor." And then she was like, "I'm the doctor." That's funny, right? You've seen that in the trailers, but it's also, what is that scene telling you? What that scene is telling you is that version of patriarchy, oh, you're a man, therefore things are just easy for you in life, that's not true. Like, they are literally telling you that that's not true. And then they said it again. So it's funny because when he goes back to Barbie Land, it makes it Kingdom Land, you see what I'm saying? Or Kingdom Land. He literally is like regaling his tales to the other men, like on a Hummer. He's like laying back and he's like on a Hummer. He's like, "Hey boys, this is how it was when I was out in the real world. It's like men ran everything, and I would have ruled that world if it wasn't for like technicalities like college degrees and, you know, experience and stuff like that." So again, you know, we are reiterating that the world is not just easy for men. Even though there's a lot of men in power, it doesn't mean that these men don't work hard, or it doesn't mean that you know, it's just, you know, roses, like they go through life through roses, right? Which is totally against it, right? And then you have it come home, right? We have the end of the story, right? Again, we're getting to the end of the story, and Ken confronts Barbie, right? Because in the beginning, Barbie was oppressing the men in her world, Ken's, right? And it was funny because Ken wanted to go to her house, right? And live in her house and sleep in her house. And it's not weird because like Barbie and Ken are an idol. Like this is her Ken, right? So she has a house. He don't got a house. He don't get to sleep in the house, and he doesn't get to sleep in the house because it's girls' night every night, right? And that's what she said. It's girls' night every night, and then everybody cheered and stuff like that. And Ken was just so sad, and he walked off. But when he took over, he was like, you know, it's boys' night every night. And he put on extra sunglasses, and it was really funny the way that Ryan Gosling did it. But it showed how this version of what feminism should be and stuff like that, this version of what we showed you as Barbie Land, that is not a good version. That is not something to aspire to because it's wrong. And it's the same type of wrong that if feminists rule the world and oppress men, that's the same problems that we have with patriarchy oppressing women. And it's also not saying that men have it easy in life because you can, right? So this is coming full circle, right? It has all these little facets of it. And it's hilarious because this is also a Pinocchio story, where you have Barbie is changing into a human, right? You know what I'm saying? She doesn't know she's changing into a human, so she has to go into a long journey to find things about herself that she didn't know about, help a mom that is dealing with death and all these crazy things. So it's her own journey, just like Pinocchio, right? Pinocchio saves his dad, right? And so Barbie saves her mom, you know, in this situation, okay? And as she becomes a real boy, which you would think that she would become a real woman, right? And that would be like she becomes a real woman, boss lady, you know, all the feminist, taglines. But that's not what happens. What happens is she becomes a human, and that is super important because it's not a man or a woman, and you can see it because at the end of the battle between the men and the women, Ken is having a crisis because he doesn't know who he is because he's like, I'm a man, right? And this is what men are supposed to do, but I don't like doing this stuff, right? So he's having these issues, and she looks at him and she doesn't say, well, you're a man or you're a woman or some sort of feminist bullshit. What she says is, you are Ken. You know what I'm saying? Like, you are an individual. You're not an archetype, right? You're not some sort of stereotype, right? You are a person. You're complex. You have wants and needs that align both in everywhere and anywhere, right? You're an individual, and that was like the end of the movie. Is to show you are human. And even as Barbie comes in, she's like, I'm not stereotypical Barbie anymore. What are you? It's like, we're gonna do feminists here and stuff like that. She's like, I don't know. I think I'm gonna leave. And she wanted to be human. And then it zoomed up on her iris, the eyes to the soul, because and at the end it's literally the old wise lady, which is the archetype of like God, right? Like in the afterlife, this old lady that makes Barbie, she looks up at Barbie and she says that society makes these words and these terms up just to deal, and what she's talking about is patriarchy and other words that restrict us and cause us to fight. We make these words up to deal with the toughness of being human. And she said, are you ready for that? And then Barbie says, yes, I'm ready to be human. And then she feels all the feelings of being human and then becomes human. But notice the emphasis on being human, not men or women. Human, because being a human is tough. It's hard. Like, being a human is a hard thing to do, man or woman. That doesn't mean that there's not things that we need to continue to do to help out inequality with women. That doesn't mean that we don't have things that we can improve on. But it does mean that we need to acknowledge to the fact of all of us that things are hard just living life as a human. And not to oversimplify things as if they're not women in power, i.e. that woman doctor, right? As if they're Hillary Clinton has way more power than me. are women in power, and it's funny because, you know, at the end they did talk about how Barbie Land ended up. It didn't turn back into the feminist thing. The women understood that they shouldn't oppress the men, the Kens, right? And they made a joke, and this was a joke. This wasn't serious. It was a joke that the Kens eventually got just as much power in Barbie Land as women do have in the real world. So it was a joke because it was like, it's like it's not quite equal. It's not quite, but we're getting there. We're getting somewhere. You know, we're close, but it's not quite equal. And so it's hilarious because that should make you realize that yes, there is some work to do. We're not nearly as bad as it's portrayed, but it's also hard for everybody, and it's a complex problem that we have to solve together. And the only way we can solve that is to acknowledge the truths. That was the end of the movie. I don't get how you got like leftist propaganda. That's so weird. And then I even seen people on the left. I was like, can't believe it. They didn't go left enough. It is just, you know, I don't get that. I think people got triggered. People got triggered because they said leftist phrases and stuff like that. And I think on top of saying the leftist phrases and having a leftist ideology, it is definitely a leftist ideology. It's not a super conservative ideology, but it is not wrong. It's more center left than it's more center left. It's like center left than it is like left. This is more of a person that is the person that wrote this. Probably reminds me of somebody that's more on like psychedelics, right? They're a little out there. We all are together. We all are one, and we're going through the life and the journey. And like that's where that is, right? That's not, you know, categorizing everything. Like those people don't categorize. Like they don't believe. Like I mean, I shouldn't be, you know, general, but in general, they think of a oneness of the energies, not of the individual. In how they feel. It's like the oneness of the energies of the whole universe. Right. That's where that is. So it's not right, but it's not super far left. So I can't understand how people are getting so upset with this, with missing the entire point. The only thing that I can think of is that people are hearing phrases like feminism and patriarchy and then just freaking out. Like they're just freaking out. And then the people on the left are like not hearing enough about anti-consumerism or you know, body image standards and stuff like that. Like they just don't hear it, so they just freak out, you know. You know, we should all watch Barbie. Probably help out. All right, see you guys later. Love you. Peace.